Right. So, good evening and good morning. We are covering basically two time zones. Half of us are ending our day, half of us are beginning. And we're so glad that all of us are here together to, read poems, to talk about poetry, and to share, these wonderful poems celebrating fall. The reason many of us have come together is we were planning, from the Hearth Within that we should be talking about the season where memories and nature together are involved in the process of shedding, and this process of shedding is also a process of renewal. And it's something that is happening, which is both in the world of the mind and in the world beyond us. And something should be done about it. And what better than to come together in poetry through a number of voices, which we mark out as autumnal voices because we have read your work and we really admire what we read and we want more of it. We are hungry for it. And so we are here this evening and we are very grateful that you have consented to join us. So thank you very much. And to welcome, to declare the session open, I would invite Professor Jaideep to talk to us, to welcome us. Over to you, Jaideep, sir.
Thank you so much. And it's lovely to meet again. An absolutely extraordinary rainbow, a fall and the leaves of memory. An autumn breeze tugs at the yellow maple leaves. The warmth of a smile opens the windows to my memories. Sometimes we live in the past, hoping to change our future. What lovely lines to begin with. And what a lovely lineup from mainly two time zones, as Bashudhara has already pointed out. It's a platform to connect with poetic minds, minds who are resolute to change the world through the wings of poetry. I know Kirsten and Ilona are very new to our platform, and we are joining in collaborating in other areas of poetic togetherness, as Bashudhara has already hinted at. It's lovely to meet all of you who are writing from different parts of the world and writing about the fall, the leaves of memory. And through memory, the past is reached. And from past and past along with present, we look into the future. Afsar, thank you so much. Bhaswati from Canada. GJV Sab, always an inspiration for all of us. Ilona, Kirsten, Maitreyee, Rolf, and Tabish. What a wonderful lineup of poetry. Let's celebrate the true spirit of the fall. Over to Bashudhara. Thank you. Welcome you all.
Thank you so much. Ilona is already here, so we are just still awaiting Ralph, and we hope that he joins in by the time for his reading. So without much ado, we will go into our session. And we begin with Afsar Mohammad. Afsar Mohammad writes poetry and short fiction in Telugu and English. He just published first ever translation of Telugu poems with the title Evening with a Sufi, published by Red River. Afsar teaches South Asian studies at the University of Pennsylvania and has published extensively about the topics related to South Asian Islam, and his monograph, The Festival of Peers, Popular Islam and Shared Devotion in South India, remains a key text in many religious studies and anthropology courses at many universities in the US and South Asia. He is also recently working on another book, and we have just been talking about it. It's on Hyderabad, and it's about using literature as history, and I'm sure Afsar will discuss it in details. I recently had the privilege of reading Evening with a Sufi, and I can assure you that you are in for a treat this evening. So thank you very much, Afsar, for joining us, and it is over to you for your wonderful poems.
Thank you so much, Vasundhara, for a generous introduction. And then I'm so happy to see you all. Like I see like a lot of happy faces here, even though some parts of the world is so cold. And then particularly coming from Philadelphia, I kind of feel that it's so warm, and then deeply kind of happy to share my words and images. But I know you're all talking about fall, even though right now we are enjoying this colorful fall here in Philadelphia. I actually want you to take you to Hyderabad, my hometown. And then I'll read one poem from Telugu, of course, translated into English. But I begin with original poems in English. So the the title of the poem is Hyderabad's Many Moons, Broken Monologues. So this is actually going to be published in like forthcoming collection of poems on Hyderabad by Usha Kerala. Hyderabad's Many Moons, Broken Monologues. Do I have words, words and words to speak? I know that both the moon and the world were whirling in a movement known to no one. For Amma, he was a little lamp of hope as she invited him to all those evenings of hunger and thirst, that lonely moon hanging in the sky of the Eid. There is another moon whose frequent and sudden disappearances make us fall into an abyss, the endless and lightless. I'm talking about the several moons of December 6th of 1992, many moonless nights, as if moving from one black mirror to another, all in one dark chamber, fumbling to find each other. Everything was a strange entity, lost for several eons. If you ask now, I would say every moon is just another street light masking many shades of darkness. I still hear Amma calling the poor moon Chandare. Walk into any street, they all smell like relics. In any lane that still carries an unbelievable past, you find another self of your own. People still have that age old smile from the last century that gracefully flows and spreads through all the spaces. You are flooded by the words that barely sound either Urdu or Telugu. It is an idiom you and me forgot to inherit. It is all about 100 sleepless nights. Half asleep, you walk into an alley to return to your last self. Many moons ago, you are somebody in this little world. You are playing, laughing, and sharing a cup of chai, religiously dunking a piece of Usmania biscuit into its smooth layers. Now you are learning to be alone, sitting right across some empty chairs. You just silently watch sundown and a blinking moon striding over the horizon. All the conversations must end now as the moon was stuck over a minar. The game is over. The game is over, and we are back into some black mirror. Thank you. That's one poem.
Mm.
Poem number two. The title is A Stranger's World and Two Poems. Dark days and white nights. Let us say all these things end well, as all our gods, goddesses, devils, jinns, ghosts keep their eyes half open through night-like days and daylight nights. We still loiter in the maze of those dark alleys, grey faces, dusky presences. Words doesn't mean anything as they wander around their own obscure jungles. We never know where to find that broken green patch and elusive fiction. Let us say we love everything that has gone forever. Friends won't return. Fathers were old monks in some immemorial forest. Mothers have become faceless. That we know everything about this world right now exits into a bad land. We all may walking dead in a funeral, possessed by a whiteness under an open fire, stretching the tongues far and far. None there to pray or burn or bury the bodies. So, in the poem, The Broken. For a few bits and pieces of sun or moon, we live die, and then live. About all happenings in between each bit and piece, we remain silent or we pretend an innocence. For a few segments from strange times, we dig so much earth and then the moon just to touch a trace of nothingness. Now we feel the life, the death, and then afterlife too. Almost everything in its bits and pieces. The cycle never ends. Thank you. Those are poems written in English directly. Do you want me to read one translation from Telugu?
Yeah, sure.
Please, yes.
So this is actually from, this is what Vasundhara was mentioning, Evening with a Sufi, published by the Red River. So this, I'm going to read the title poem itself, Evening with a Sufi. It's in memory of Wali Gujarati, whose grave was demolished during the riots in Gujarat in 2002. I will never know the fate of my worn out cap. I took a handkerchief from my pocket and tied it on my head. It's not right for the human mane to sway. The doors tightened on the still closed grave, waiting for the evening prayer. When the call sounded, the sparrows flung up in joy and reached home. After the evening prayer, I knew the body of the Sufi by the embroidered cloth that covered him for many 100 years. I bent my body down to his feet, reciting verses. 2 eyes changed to 2 tears that shone on the embroidered cloth. The tears changed to 2 sparrows flung up into nowhere. I had gone somewhere inside him. I couldn't come out. His memory is like a worn Arabic text. I'm afraid to open, afraid I will tear it. But once I made a pilgrimage there, how can this make sense? As I was leaving the shrine, something exploded into a cloud of sparrows, then a flurry of severed wings. Everyone was running here and there, screaming. I ran into the shrine again, into the shrine's pure silence. Now I watch a sparrow with its bleeding beak, writing something on the grave, translating its pain. Where will I go now? There is a grave to dig within me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Those were very, very beautiful poems, especially the title poem of the collection. Thank you very much for reading them out, and we look forward to reading the Hyderabad poems in Shakela's book very soon. It's going to be released at the Hyderabad Literature Festival in January.
Right.
Thank you so much. And
thank you so much for that time and patience.
Thank you. We move over.
Yeah.
Hey, muted.
Unmute.
So sorry. Yes. All right. Yes. So Bhaswati Ghosh writes and translates fiction, non-fiction, and poetry. Her first book of fiction is Victory Colony, 1950. Her first work of translation from Bengali into English is My Days with Ram Kinkar Badge. Bhaswati lives in Ontario, Canada, and is currently working on a non-fiction book on New Delhi, India. And she is a fabulous poet who needs no introduction, basically. And I think the first time I very seriously thought about autumn was when I contributed to the Women INC's special fall issue last year. And the theme was so wonderful, and it was crafted by Bhaswati Ghosh. And that made me think and rethink about autumn, and that rethinking has stayed. So thank you, Bhaswati Di, for being with us here this evening, and over to you for your poems.
Thank you so much, Vasundhara. That was very kind of you. And to be honest, it's a little difficult to follow Afsar's brilliant act, but I will try. We were just discussing about the fall, the beautiful fall on the East Coast, and I am fortunate to witness some of that living in Ontario. So my first poem is called Fall. The air has sinusitis. It spits out cold, skin-tingling sneezes. Sunsets morph into giant pumpkins and sink down grocery store shelves. The earth, tired of bareness, covers her breast with fallen leaves. Gold, tangerine, crimson colonize trees. Chlorophyll fades like the vaporous dream called summer. Fall into savings, a sign outside the store says. But all I see are folds. Bodies rushing to work fold into sweaters and coats. Walls of dusts and smells from last year and the year before. Birds fold into rolling clouds before finding home. Squash and sweet potato fold into earthy soups. Under the late evening cover, I fold into the wraps of your slowly warming autumn skin. So that's the first one.
Lovely.
My next poem is called Thirsty. Bird call will start soon. The room will gather echoes of a backyard drifting across seas. The moistness of memory blotches the seen, the felt, making them apparitions of the once seen, the once felt. The neighbor plants bitter leaf to mix in her tropical fish soup. The ocean surges in her dry throat. Open the southern window. Hoard unending afternoons before they get frostbitten. Let sleep hang in the air while a spotted dove returns with stolen monsoon. I'll now read a poem which is based on an Indian rag called Yaman, and it's usually played in the evening or night time, and it reminds me of autumn. So Yaman. It comes with autumn's surreptitious footfall, each alap a waft of incense smoke, rarely a thunderstorm. The oxygen of light slowly dissolves, with it, the room. Yaman, like its Tivra Madhyam, persists, cementing itself in wall corners, sustaining the breath. Hours deepen, the sun's diurnal imperiousness becomes a laughable hoax. Vision loses its clues. The world is lost, an illusion one had given into. Bypassing the eye's stubborn pathways, Yaman rose the years and flows right into the heretic heart. No one claims darkness better than Yaman. And if there's time, I'll read one last one, or I will move on. We can move on to the next.
Please. You have all the time. Yes, please.
So this is called Early Winter. In the hush of September afternoons, summer escapes bit by bit. The disquiet of this sudden quietude is mild at first. Bird call drops in volume before the birds go missing. Early winter comes in strange whispers. Frostbite squints at the sun, its questioning obdurate. The snow forgets that burying a ship doesn't always sink it. Rivers carry echoes and secret tunnels. Autumn rain ferries mudhouse dreams to streets inebriated with reclaimed resolve. Not all thefts lead to impoverishment, so seasoned heart stealers keep returning to business. Inside the earth's belly, roots plump, biting, sprout and swim. October's but a whim. Thank you.
Beautiful. Brilliant. Very beautiful poems. Thank you so much for that. And from here, we move on to GJV sir. GJV Prasad, formerly Professor of English at Jawaharlal Nehru University, is a poet, novelist, and translator. His teachings and research have focused on Indian English literature, modern drama, and translation. His recent publications include a short monograph on Khushwant Singh, a translation of Ambai's stories, A Red-Necked Green Bird, and his second collection of poems, This World of Mine. GJV sir, we are more than grateful that you consented to join us this evening, and over to you.
Thank you. Of course, I've taken advantage of invitation. my poems, really the 3 poems I'm going to read, but about seasons, but they're really about memories and just stretch things a bit. The first poem is about my university, Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. It's called How Brown Was My Campus. I remember my university, the up campus, a brown, rocky terrain. Sorry, I'm going to put my this thing off because the internet is being iffy. Just my video off, right? Okay. I remember my university, the up campus, a brown, rocky terrain of promise, radiating heat in the summer, stone cold in the winter. A road, 3 hostels and residences of togetherness in the search for a green and fertile tomorrow. I remember my university, a brown, rocky terrain of promise, of freedoms and new responsibilities, the shock of recognition, love, understanding, and friendships, of solidarities forged in the club building down campus, dreaming up a present as well as a future forged in freedom. I remember my university, all the hiccups and misadventures, as also the guns pointed at hostel balconies and midnight arrests and misidentifications of boots on the rocky terrain of promise, trying to snuff out all intent, the content of debates and dhabas for an equitable, green, and fertile tomorrow. I remember my university, up campus, still a rocky terrain, still holding promise and a future with the nilgais and the peacocks dancing, slowly greening itself into the ridge, with misadventure and heavy boots of the state, ending the heavy hubris of a campus, believing everyone wanted the same. I remember my university, how brown was the campus and how green we must have been, learning all the questions and thinking we could find the answers, that there were answers to find. The more questions we ask, the more questions we need to ask. To know the greening of the campus is not a metaphor, not an answer. Thank you. The next poem is a poem incidentally written in the USA in 2004. It's each stanza, and I mean, it's in alternate stanzas, one about the cicadas, the other about the people. So I might try different voices. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. The season of the cicadas, and I'm pronouncing it, I think, the American way, 2004, because the British way or the Indian way would say cicadas, right? The season of the cicadas. They strike no terror, though a woman loses control of the wheel, hits a hydrant, floods a street, and is the news. The world has changed, new countries, new boundaries, new governments, new deaths, and presidents struggling to survive. The years underground hasn't changed the mission, programmed into their genes. All answer the call of death. The dogs of war have been loosed around the world. Killing is the habit of faith, worn with ease. They are killed for pleasure. Boys fry them, dogs eat them. Now out in the open, they do not hide or take precautions. They finally found a war they all like. Moral, simple, and straight, they think. 60 years after a monument to the dance of death. It is the Woodstock, days and nights of music, acting out the message of peace. Mold, mate, and die. Photographs from the Middle East shock and sicken the soul of a people at war, waiting for a cause to unite, to die for, in reason, passion, and season. A nation envies the cicadas. Thank you. This was 2004, and you know what was happening. So, the last poem I'll read is written for this event. The leaves fall in Delhi all year round. The city royal of tombs and memories, of hot summers and miseries, always awaiting winters, of chapped lips, fogs, and pollution. A city of smoke in autumn, birds falling out of the sky, children dying to breathe, and all breathing to die. Poems lie scattered on the roads of Delhi, each one a monument to ambition and hope. Exhausted people in search of a river that once flowed milk and honey, ever only for those with money. The trees of Delhi tell you a tale, if only you will listen. Fall is not a season, it is every day. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you very much for those very wonderful poems. And we're especially happy with the third poem because you said that it came for this particular session. And because I have a long-term aim in mind, which I will not mention here. So that makes me especially happy about it. Thank you very much, GJV sir, for these wonderful poems. Thank you.
Welcome.
And
Thank you for the
we move over to Ilona. Ilona Yusuf is a designer, printer, printmaker, editor, and poet. She has edited a special issue on Pakistan for Vellum, a magazine of contemporary poetry, published from Montreal, and was editor of the Alhambra Literary Review. Currently, she is associate editor for the Aleph Review, a yearly Pakistani art and literature journal, which publishes local and international writing, and has served in that capacity since 2017. She has also freelanced for several local art and features magazine, writing on art, artists, and writers, and has published essays on Pakistani poetry in English in international publications. We're very glad, Ilona, that you could make it to us, though she has currently certain problems, and we're very glad that she could join us for this session. Thank you, Ilona, for being here, and it's over to you for your beautiful poems. You have to unmute, Ilona. You are muted. You have to just
Thank
unmute.
you so much for having me, Vasudhara. And yeah, it's wonderful to be here and to hear this beautiful poetry. Okay, so I shall plunge into this. I was planning a different order, but I'm changing it around now. So I'm beginning with a poem which is a part of a new set of poems called Garden Sequence. And this is one of the last poems because it's more towards November. As I realize, Raat Ki Rani seems to bloom in October and November. So it's now, I think, on its last legs. But anyway, here it is. Raat Ki Rani, or Queen of the Night. Cool, moist stillness of the fading monsoon. Soft throat of night suffused with the ceaseless two-note treble of crickets. Shadows cut across the aloes and agaves, dividing their deepened greens into planes of light and shade. To the spike-leaved bush bearing nondescript green-white flowers, candle-knobbed clusters that bloom to release their giddying nocturnal breath, fragrance that infuses the night air with something pure, transparent, as if fistfuls of stars have come down past the diaphanous veils, Irma, that frame the entrance to heaven. That was poem one. And now I'm going to go to a little more serious poems, both written with my children in mind in times of strife. So this one is for my daughter, and it's about fog. Driving. I'd never done it. Do you say in fog or through it? Yet knew instantly the consuming haze cuts vision. Breath comes short, choked before inhalation, as if fog's fingers rise around, within, unfolding. Much driven roads demapped, behind twists and bends on narrow roads, great rocks, empty spaces, past which the road might fall away. Landmarks dim, barely recognized, a mangled winter trunk, a light blurred in cloaking mist. In the open, thick yellow, shrouded streetlights, figures, dark shapes emerging sudden, dim exposures on the whirling white. Only your presence granted me courage, guiding me through comfort in details glimpsed, a clump of baby's breath clear against headlights framed by the grainy dark. And the next one is called Voice Box. And it's after a song by Florence, oh gosh, I've forgotten the name, but it's called The Dog Days. So the dog days are over, she sings. In a cottage in the hills on a monsoon night, soft with the percussion of crickets. My mind winds back, night driving with my son. And this song, this voice, first heard carrying a wing on our speed. And even though we drove towards a death, deep space, ink sky, dark earth enfolded us. And this sound, breath, air, held resonant, rapturous, ringing notes set free. If there's time, I will read one more.
Yes.
Is that okay? Okay, all right, thank you. So I really love limestone rocks, and I keep looking at them because we have them in the area. What I like is that they seem to absorb light and reflect it at the same time, at different times during the day. So this one's called Limestone. Not the hard, compacted fists of rock formed of fire, high-shined in water, but permeable grain. I'm still not sure why I like it. Like it? I'm fascinated by it. Perhaps because it's formed from life, slow flattened beneath the weight of water, millefeuilles that carry the stamp of bone, liquid congealed, the soft whispers of life's exhalations. Then, slices thrown up sharp slammed, folds crisscrossing, splitting in shaly flat fragments, conglomerations, stones pressed together, honeycombed with nodules, fissures, elongations where waters melted rock to take its flowing shape, then settled in hidden pools, channels, and something else too, luminosity beneath light, as if rock's embedded memory of life is lit from within. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilona. Thank you for your wonderful poems. And as I mentioned, Ilona also is on the editorial panel for the Aleph Review, which is a wonderful journal from Pakistan. And she's looking out for new voices. So it's an invitation for all of us here to submit to the Aleph Review. It's a wonderful place to be. So thank you, Ilona. Thank you much for being able to join us despite, so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to say that the Aleph Review has a website. It's called thealephreview.com, and Aleph is spelled A-L-E-P-H. So in case you'd like to take a look at the content, please go ahead and submit work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm grateful that you could be with us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
And from Ilona, we move over to Kirsten. Kirsten Porter is a poet, editor, and educator. Her poems appeared in publications including Poet Lore, the Limberlost Review, This Is What America Looks Like, and Voices of the Grieving Heart. Kirsten is assistant to poet and literary activist E. Ethelbert Miller and editor of the collected poems of E. Ethelbert Miller. Kirsten, we are very happy to have you here, and we are very happy to have seen your wonderful pets also. Over to you for your poems.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, inviting me. This is a wonderful way to start the day over in America. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to reflect on the seasons. A few weeks ago, actually, Ethelbert and I did a reading together, and the theme could be anything. So I was looking at my work, and what had called to me then was talking about the seasons and loss. So when I got your invitation, I was like, oh, this is wonderful. I already have a collection that I can read. But I always like to challenge myself a little bit. And so what is really nice about these opportunities is I try to bring one new thing. And so I'll read my last poem. The last poem is the new thing, that it is a poem that has been in my heart, but I have not written it. It has to do with loss, and it was a hard poem to write. But I really thank you for the opportunity to write it and share it with you for the first time today. So I'll save that to the end. I'll start with a poem again about, it's interesting. I was thinking about what the seasons mean to me, and I think they're a little bit different for everybody. But autumn for me is a time of nostalgia, reflection, loss, kind of getting ready for the cold because I don't do well with cold. So it's kind of a savoring of the warmth that we have left before the winter comes. And in America, I don't know if this is the case with India, a lot of times we pick fruit in the autumn. And so we have these great, beautiful apple orchards. And I lost a very dear friend too early. And my last memory, and maybe it wasn't my last, but maybe the one that my heart wants to remember most, was picking apples with her. So this is called Tracy in Autumn. Tracy in autumn, racing across a field of apple trees. There, she stops and points to one apple dangling from the highest branch, crimson and gold, reflecting the afternoon sun. Then I feel her arms swoop me up into the tree. I climb until I've reached her apple and claim it for my own. Score, she shouts and does a victory dance below. Tracy in autumn, leaves crunching underfoot as she sways back and forth with her arms outstretched. I'll catch you, she calls up to me. Her confidence is contagious. I make my slow descent, close my eyes, and let go. Tracy in autumn, cradling my weight, then collapsing. I hear her laughter as we both tumble down into the leaves, flaming mounds of yellows and oranges crackling all around us. There is a fire in her eyes, warm and glowing and so very alive. Stay with me in autumn. I would forgo all of the wonder of winter snows, the blooms of spring and summer's long sleep, for every season to be Tracy in autumn. Thank you. This next poem is just I start my week on Monday. So the weekend, I think a lot of people do, but it's always sad to me when the weekend goes away. But I woke up early, which is different for me. I usually am a late riser and notice the sunset. What hope looks like on Monday. Before you accidentally reply all and the dog steps in his pee and paw prints it down the hallway tiles, before Wednesday's storm gives way to Thursday's sinus headache that still throbs on Friday, before you spend 7 nights staring up at the ceiling, wondering why you are still here, but Tracy is not, before the week doles out its disappointments dressed up as the blues, the morning sun rises on Monday, big and round and tinged luminous red, pulsing through your front window, breaking through the glass to drip all its golden promises across the still clean tiles. Let's see, I sent this one to me. This is an older poem I wrote, but I was thinking about the seasons. This one is called Wind. I longed for wind in the summers of grass blazing green pinwheels. I summoned its coming on the tip of a parched summer tongue. I invited its cool to grace the burnt skin peeling back on July's shadows. Instead, wind skipped over autumn and waited for iced over winter when stale snow marked the walkways. At the bus stop, it blew and halo rounds found its way into my bones. I learned to listen for the sound of air, to brace myself for its bite. My mother moves like wind against my skin, in my bones. I once longed for her reappearance, searched for her across 2 summers and back. When she returned to me in winter, I recognized only her cold touch. And so then I'll just read my last poem, if that's okay. There's time for that. Is that all right? Okay. This one is called Last Leaf. I should begin by explaining that, so I taught literature over at a university outside of DC for a long time. And one of my favorite short stories to teach was one that I used to think about a lot as a young girl. You know, there are certain stories that stick with you. And this story is by O. Henry, and it's called The Last Leaf. And it's this beautiful story about somebody who is dying, and their friend doesn't want them to die. And the friend says, well, I'm going to die when the last leaf falls. And so the friend who wants her friend to stay longer gets an artist to paint a leaf on the building so that where the friend is sick in her bedroom and she can see out, she still sees a leaf. And her friend thinks if she can just still see that leaf, she'll stay. So 2 years ago in October, I'm a rescue dog advocate. And I had the privilege of having a beautiful soul for 15 years. And his name was Isidore. And Isidore taught me about courage and resilience. And so this poem is written for him on his last day. It's called Last Leaf. And there's a quote from the story that I just told you about. They're falling faster now. When the last one goes, I must go too. That's from The Last Leaf by O. Henry. All around us, the leaves swirled. Autumn opened its arms and whispered words I was not ready to hear. The trees were swollen with red foliage. The low October sun shone through the spaces of limbs and leaves and left glints of yellow and orange on the ground. I heard the leaves crunch underneath us and kept pushing forward, I on foot and you in your carriage, stopping once to measure our distance, our journey. I leaned over to you to look into your eyes, large prophetic orbs. See, Isidore, there are so many leaves around us left for this to be your last. But death is not acquainted with the logic of magical thinking, and that afternoon, in the quiet of leaves and color and autumnal vespers, you told me you could not wait one more day. Cancer had stolen your last leaf.
I don't have words to respond to your poems. Very beautiful, very moving. Thank you. You bring autumn at its best to us. Thank you very much.
Especially the last poem. It was so beautiful. I'm a dog lover myself, so I can completely relate. Thank you for that.
And we move over to now Maitreyee herself. Maitreyee Bhattacharya Chowdhury is a poet and writer. She has 4 books to her credit: The Hungryalists, 1 Dozen Hassan Azizul Haq translation, Uttam Kumar and Suchitra Sen, Bengali Cinemas for Couple, and Where Even Present at Ancient, Banaras. Maitreyee is the editor of the Bangalore Review, a literary magazine, and is currently involved with the Academy of Motion Pictures for the Oral History Project as a translator. I have had the privilege of meeting Maitreyee, and I realized that she lives like a poem. So, Maitreyee, we are very grateful that you were here. You could find time to be with us today, and it's over to you for your poems.
Thank you, Vasuthara. I'm so delighted to be here. Goes without saying. I mean, hearing these poems is so wonderful. And, each one of you come with your own idea of fall, idea of autumn. So when Vasuthara first spoke to me about the theme of fall, I started recollecting what fall, what autumn really meant to me. I grew up in a small town in the northeast of India called Digboy. It's an oil town. It's really a tiny hamlet. It's an oil town. And we were surrounded by the Patkai Hills, blue Patkai Hills, and I lived. It's like the entire town of Digboy is like a wildlife sanctuary. We had animals coming over to the house. We had, so my childhood was spent with trees and seeing the rains come through the Patkai Hills and animals. So it was a very romantic childhood, and all of autumn reminds me of, I realized, smells. My father was a gardener, and he taught me to, understand nature with my hand. To feel the earth is something very important to me. So because I've been a gardener myself, to grow vegetables is to know love. You see them sprouting, you see the flowers coming, and you feel the smell. That smell embodies autumn for me. Also, while thinking, because I do write on cinema, so I do envisage a lot of things in cinematic terms. Autumn also meant Kash Phool from Satyajit Ray's film for me. Kash Phool is a sort of wild reeds, you could call them reeds. They grow abundantly in the Indian heartland. They are unique to the Indian heartland, throughout the central Indian belt and into Assam and Orissa. And they are white in color, and Ray himself has described them as fluffy white clouds, I believe. So, for me, autumn is also that. It's also the onset of Durga Pujas for every Bengali, which has so much of meaning for us. So my poem, the poems I'm going to read are a bit of a chaos in terms of loss, in terms of fall, in terms of smells. All of that embodies autumn for me. So I'll just read. These are more or less short, 3 short poems. I hope you like them. The first poem I'm going to read is called "The Moon is a Plum on Kartik Purnima." So we recently had Kartik Purnima. In terms of Indian calendar, Kartik, the month of Kartik, the 15th day of the lunar calendar in the month of Kartik has a full moon, and that is celebrated as the Kartik Purnima. I was incidentally in Khajuraho. I was traveling, and Khajuraho is in Madhya Pradesh. I was there to see the ancient temples of Khajuraho, and I witnessed Kartik Purnima there. So this is from there. The moon is a plum on Kartik Purnima. We await winter, both Khajuraho and I, in the distant shadow of history, wounded eyes and brown hands, a lover's tainted shadow on fallen leaves. I should have told you then, and in a city more robust, in a time more vacant, on evenings lying by the grass, lover, lie beside me. Lie down beside me, sorry. The second poem is called Between Sleep and Blindness, Flailing Light. I've always thought that autumn has a special light to it, especially autumn in India has a special light to it. So I think this poem comes a bit from there, and it's from a lot more other things also, as you'll find out. Caught between sleep and alarmed wake, you walk back home. It is autumn, the season of approaching smells. Waylaid by grass, on a whim you stop, forget, lie down, curious to see that growth again, tremendous. From seed comes ingenuity, you think, like a blind man smelling his hands in light. You observe the grass, this meticulous aversion to homogeneity in each particular blade. You think of time then, in the autumnal light, Time was when the jolpai would fall on rusted tin roofs in a slow village by the Dihing. Music here is a blank verse, like an engine falling into a lake, and memory is everything and beyond. All night long you count the numbers, jolpai greens, now salt, now peppery, now sweet. Daylight is weary and far too soon. Cold as sleet you rise. Buried in your brains is the bare music of silence, of growth falling down. You finally realize the crack from where the night smells of citrus, and you let the light in. Tremendous flailing light. So, thank you. The next poem is called From a Few Winters Before. The list of unnecessary and useful things one remembers every autumn changes. I began with the only copy of my first picture with my father, the hair I cut off from a now dead first boyfriend's head, the smell of a roommate's leftover books, and the akuni I cooked in earthen pots, in villages, the names of which I forgot. I've married myself to variant smells, so that when I lie down apprehending death, I might allow myself some rain for germination. But while germination might be my thing, everyone needs different things to die. You realize then that to carry them back to the brink of where it all began, to paint memories instead of purple skies, to love, laugh, and cry, and to find the last light, you have to begin where it all began once. And so we say it again, and this time with certainty, born of the gardener's understanding of death, of bacteria between his fingers. Everyone needs different things to grow, different things to fall and die for. To bury yourself alive, sometimes an equinox, a shovel, and a pregnant fall are all you need. Thank you.
Fascinating, fascinating.
Thank you, Maitreyee, for those very, very evocative poems. Thank you. We could almost feel the earth in our hands. Thank you. We move over to Ralph from Nazareth as a poet, teacher, and publisher, author of 4 books of poems, Ferrying Secrets, Crystal, selected poems, Between Us the Long Road, and Dropping Death. His poetry and prose have appeared in books, magazines, journals, including Future Library, Contemporary Indian Writing, Indivisible Anthology of Contemporary South Asian American Poetry, and Multilingual Anthology. The Americas Poetry Festival of New York 2014. His poetry has been read at venues like El Salvador, Ecuador, Colombia, Palestine, India, and other countries. For decades in schools, colleges, universities, and maximum security prisons in the US. For the past years, he has led a weekly group of poets at Curley's Dine in Stamford. He's the managing editor of Uganda Press and currently serves as chair of the advisory committee of Grace Works, an international nonprofit. Ralph, we are very grateful that you could make time for us this morning, and it's over to you. I hope that you can hear us clearly now. But we cannot hear you. I was afraid. This other device of yours has the audio muted. I was afraid, that this could happen. We cannot hear you. The other device has the audio muted. Can you try unmuting that? We cannot hear you, Ralph. No, we cannot hear you. We cannot hear you. This other device that you have logged in through, could you unmute the audio of that device? Then I could unmute this audio and maybe that can work.
I think he could try logging in and logging out again.
Yeah, that is what I had suggested. Now you are muted on both the devices. Can you try unmuting? And if it works, try it. You're muted, but still we cannot hear you. What we can do, Ralph, is you try logging in again. In the meantime, we can have Tabish read his poems, and then you can try logging in again. Will that be right? Please. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So in the meantime, let me introduce Tabish, and we can carry on with our reading while Ralph tries to reconnect. So Tabish Nawaz teaches environmental science and engineering at IIT Mumbai. He has published a short collection, Opening Clouds, Fermented Rain. His short stories, poems, and book reviews have been published in Outlook, Nether Quarterly, Madras Courier, the Bombay Review, the Wool Gathering Review, the Critical Flame, the Punch Magazine, the Wire, and the Yearbook of Indian Poetry in English 2021, among other places. Tabish, we are very grateful to have you. I have read your wonderful poems, and I really look forward to hearing you in person. Over to you.
Thank you, Professor Roy. So it's my pleasure reading here. And the best part, like this is my first poetry reading, and the best part of reading, I realized that it's listening to all the great voices. So some of the poems really touched me, and like, I'm really grateful to be part of this session today. So I could not write specifically for this session. I had few poems published, so I have selected some of them that deals mostly with memory and transformation, because when I thought about fall, it's always struck me as something transforming, something in transition. And when I think about memory, I always think like it's always revealed in a present moment, and you look at present, look at past, and then you see how far you have traveled, how far you have transformed. So memory is like, I see it as a transformation, evaluation of the present. So a few poems I have written, and most of them deal with memory and transformation. So I will be reading. I brought 5 poems. I don't know if I would be able to read all of them. So, but they are short poems. So first poem I'm reading is Domestication. So bumping into each other after a hiatus, we realized how tamed now the menagerie is within us. The goats no longer graze our hearts. The birds have flown out of our eyes. The foxes no longer think. The tigers chew the leaves from the hands. Even the critters sleep at night. We wonder how wild we were back then, pang-ridden, hungry, devouring our timid selves. So next poem I would like to read is Metamorphosis. It's about transition, transformation. As the fingers caress, leaves sprout from the eyes, weeping the light, garnished with the greenish glow. The mouth, wet with the shadows, turns into a cave. An oak tree billows out, its twigs painted over the forehead. Trembles the bow, like lips on sad faces, twisted and locked, probing empty spaces, to burrow in and lit up the bodies into ashes. The heart, like an iceberg, floats to wreak a havoc. Its tip, visible like a bloody nose, makes love an exercise in believing that the sum total of the anatomy would bear the soul. Next poem is The Oozing of Being. The tiny leaves of Gulmar murmur like words in a verse, revealing the inner core hidden from the everyday sun. The droplets pirouette, the sunlight piercing into them, blazing in each a sky, like dreams caught within the eyes, illuminating, melting. A canopy of clouds covers the day, as one would protect the harvest of desires from one's own doing. All are too broken, carrying the weight of the ocean, frozen within. A mere pleasantry floats, unspoken, settles to cuisines, stirring one stillness to another stillness. Last poem I would like to read is Still Image. While cleaning an old bookshelf, I found a picture of days gone by, maybe of the time I used to know you, or I think I knew you, and the earth had begun to look nascent, like a newborn. I still photograph that teemed with life, appeared different whenever I failed to trace you. Then an image flew by that made everything around me tranquil, and I could never move on. So these are some of the poems I brought. So thank you for being
Did
patiently
you
listening
read
to
all
these
5?
poems.
You said
Thank
you
you for
had
the
brought
time.
5. I think you read just 3.
Yeah, I read 3. I think I read
Okay, you
4.
can still read one,
Yeah,
please.
one more. Okay. So this is the tailor. This is when I first started reading. So I was like most of us are trained in like multiple languages like English and Hindi or other regional languages. So we typically have this tendency of fusing the languages alphabets together while coming up with some words while writing or while speaking. So I when I recollected this memory, I thought that like we start as a tailor of language. So the title of the poem is The Tailor. The first time I learned reading, I stitched alphabets together, cobbled them into words, proclaiming after each letter the shape of the sound. The seam in the fabric of the language would echo, the silence sweeping around them. I could hear the spaces that separated the letters, their shivering. Even when all stood together, meanings shrouded them. The hum held them straight. The unspoken, the unwritten trembled as the needle of my tongue sewed them with the thread of the language into the fabric of our conversation in porous see-through clothes. So this is the poem I was missing out. So thank you for reminding me. So,
Thank you for bringing in that one image of the tailor, and this idea of tailoring languages. Fall is also the season of tearing apart and mending. So thank you for that image. Thank you. And Ralph, now we can see Ralph on 2 devices. He's muted on one. No, Ralph, the one I can see you. No, please try unmuting the other one also. You're not audible, Ralph. No, just try. One of the devices is unmuted. The other is muted. Try unmuting the other one also. I think it is the other one which is working. Try unmuting the other one. Should I remove one of this from the meeting? Maitreyee, do you think that will work?
I don't know really. I mean, which device is he logged on to?
He's logged in from 2 devices. One of them is unmuted, and that is not working. The other is muted.
No, by device, I mean, is he logged on from a phone or from?
No idea. I can. He is saying something we cannot hear.
Ralph, the quickest way that might work, a strategy that might work, I do a lot of Zoom tutoring, and when my students don't have their volume working, I have them call me and I put it on speakerphone and then I can hear them. So the quickest way might be if Ralph does the email that you sent out to everybody, on that email quickly sends his phone number. One of us can call him and put him on speakerphone, and then we can still see him and hear him if that.
I'll just try doing one thing. I'll try removing Ralph, who is unmuted, so that he can try to mute the device that he is connected to. Maybe that can work. So Ralph, I'm removing you from one of your devices, right? I'm removing one from the call. And then, yes, now you're left with the other one. Please try unmuting this. Please unmute this. You are muted on this one. Please try unmuting this. I believe this will work. As if we were watching him from a glass cabin where he's speaking and we cannot hear him.
Professor Roy, can we ask him to share his screen? Then we can see what's wrong.
This is his phone. Yes, Ralph, try unmute your phone. Oh, this is his phone number. Oh, right.
Right. So the strategy, remember, do you want me to call him and I can put him on speaker and then you guys can hear him?
Okay.
He can
Yes,
read.
that
So
would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure.
That
Sure.
would be great.
I
if
think
you could
I
do
think
a
that might be the
short-
quickest way. So hold on, let me
Okay.
find where. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Okay. Okay, I'm calling you right now, Ralph.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Okay. Okay, wait. How do I get this from echoing? Well,
Kirsten, you might want to mute your PC because there are two devices now.
perfect. Yes, you're right.
That won't work because we have to hear the phone.
Kristen's
The device cannot be muted.
phone is mute. If Kristen's screen is muted, though we can't hear from the phone.
Oh, yes.
Your
that's-
screen, unmute. Kirsten, your screen.
Kirsten, you'll have to unmute. Everybody else will have to mute.
Ralph, can you try unmuting yourself on that device to which you are logged in? I'm sure it will work.
Kirsten.
Okay.
I'm unmuted here.
No, but it shows us that you are muted.
You know what it says? Click the camera blocked icon in your browser's address bar.
Okay. Normally this works with Zoom. Sorry. I'm trying to think. What if
Maybe
Ralph?
Ralph read your poems. Despite the echo, we will consider that as Autumn's echo, you know.
I'm going to turn this off then. I'm sorry, Ralph. I tried.
Please read. Ralph, please read your poems.
Well, I just took him off because you couldn't hear
Oh,
him.
no. Please get him connected. Let him read a couple of poems.
You can hear him without it echoing?
Yes, I think that since he's here, we should be able to hear a bit of him at least.
Okay, I'll call him again. But when I had him on, I thought you guys couldn't hear him because he was echoing.
We will manage with the echo.
You'll manage? Okay. I'm wondering really quick before I get him back on, what if he shuts off completely from the computer and only speaks into the phone? Do you think it's him that's echoing? Is that maybe the problem?
No. It's because, you know, your device is also, you know, saying the same, you know, like you're listening to the same things that Ralph is saying. So the echo is from your end. It's not from Ralph's end.
It could be from him also. So we might.
No, yeah. So when I do Zoom, that's what I'm saying. Like I can actually call the person and they can speak into the speakerphone so that I can hear them.
So Ralph
even when I
should only
can't
be
hear
on
them.
the phone and not on his PC. And just
So that's what if he were to shut off everything. So when I get him on the phone again, I'm going to tell him to shut off everything from the meeting and only talk in the phone, and let's see if that works. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Bear with me. I'm trying. Okay.
This is one problem with our digital mediums.
Okay, Ralph, try turning off everything on your PC. Let's see if that solves the echo. Okay.
Okay, Kirsten,
Yes. There's no echo. Yay.
can they hear me?
I think so. There's no echo. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to hold you as close to my speaker. And please, you're on.
Thank you, Basudhara, and all of you. My heart is with you. I've been in the US for 54 years, but my heart and soul are still in India. And when I see you, all of you there on the screen, I really want to leap out of mine and get in there with you. This is so frustrating, but at the same time, it is a miracle that finally I'm able to connect with you, at least by voice. Thank you so much, all of you. I'm going to read 3 poems. You saw, probably many of you saw the extraordinary pictures of the fall that I sent. Did you, Kirsten, by the way?
I did. It was gorgeous.
Okay. So that today it's a gray day. It's a drizzly gray day, and all the leaves are down. We're already at the beginning of winter, so to say. And I feel like it reflects my age. I'm in the fall of my life and on the edge of winter. So what I've done is I've chosen 2 short poems which have to do with a kind of fall. It has nothing to do with nature as such, but you'll see what I mean. The first one is from a long sequence called In the End Times. The gods fell through the years. Some fell hard and their deaths were mourned in the streets. Some fell and went unnoticed. Wherever they fell, they left craters large and small. She dared to speak only of the past and what could not kill again. Of the future, she would not speak. The mind trembled, thinking of the coming guest. Our gods have failed us, she cried, and of the goddesses newly risen, the old deserters, slinking away like whores who cannot deliver, and the young ones have yet to keep their promise. Kirsten, are you there?
I'm there. That was beautiful.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And this is the second poem. It's based on an extraordinary event a few years ago here in Newburgh, New York, when thousands of birds just started falling down from the sky. They might have, I don't know exactly the reason for it, some natural cause, or maybe they were poisoned accidentally or unintentionally. So this poem is called Windfall. The first one was a curiosity, the second a sacred relic, the third and fourth were alarming, beyond which grew indifference. Past the hundreds, there was a murmur of disgust. We were perplexed somewhere along the count, but once they hit the thousands, we were outraged. And so, as the birds fell, a black hail on our roofs, their fist-hard bodies pummeling our trees, burying our new-seeded fields, the blind of their eyes screening a view of ourselves, we waded to our tractors to hook up the plows, though out of season, for the harvest of our lives. Kirsten, one more poem?
Absolutely, please.
Okay. I know that the whole group has taken so much time trying to accommodate me, and I'm so grateful. This poem is definitely an autumnal poem, shading off into winter. It's based on the life of my aunt in India, and it's self-explanatory. It's a little longer than the first 2 poems, and this is my last poem. And before I read it, once again, Vasudhara and the whole group of poets, what can I say? My heart is with you, really. I'm so grateful. Painting roses. Elephants in scalloped frocks with silver-dotted almond eyes, decked and trimmed with enough tricks to blind a noon bazaar, rehearsed for Dasara on the lawn of the palace of the Prince of Mysore. Maharaja Jayachamaraja Vadir, Rajadi Raja, King of Kings, whose largesse spanned beyond his prodigious girth. In the sparkling darbar under giant tiered chandeliers, in and among the glazed columns of lavender light, tempera and the heady edge of turpentine and thinner, the artists worked away, waving brushes at high-strung canvases, or doubled over muslin, linen, loosened leather, stretched taut in clamped rings of balsa, sandalwood, sacred aromatic timber. In this dappled grove of easels, my aunt painted oils on voile and silk, pursed lips, pinpoint eyes, a palo drawn up tight and tucked at midriff, the sari pinned with brooch, she dipped into her depths to fill her roses. Bloodroot earth tones shaping hearts deeper in the sinking dark than any human fathomed. Childless and nursing ancient sorrows, her own and of womankind, she painted fire in the place of flesh, in dusky tints of burnt umber. Then she buried the pain in shades of pink, solace of soul in the blaze of saffron splendid, scattering of a word, of princely charms and gilded turbans, jerry coats, shawls with shimmer lines and radiant hearts. She won the gold and rode among the celebrated, jangling on an elephant in the grand parade, 8 days in a row in the light of people's lavish praise and love, going down among us a living legend. Slowly as with age her touch wavered and her eyes grew dim, she begged me to let my words paint for her the flowers of her turbulence. My tongue was like a hand, she felt, my words her roses. But I had been spared the pain that tinged her life, so I told her of the poet who returned from the trenches, sick at heart, from a garret in the village he ushered in the morning with a curse on his neighbors and the world. But as the day wore on, he sang, I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees. Yes, and what he couldn't see but knew despite his misery, the true blue dream of sky and of everything infinite. As she faded away, my aunt recited after me the poet's words, drawing deeply from his yes and the surging inner life of things. She walked until her spirit quivered with the sap rising in the roses of a lone heart's creation, thorns and all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's see, Ralph. Wow, you have such deep, rich sounds throughout all of your poems, and I'm so grateful that you were able to read.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can speak to him.
Yeah, he can
Thank
join
you.
back because he can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you. I'll come back.
Perfect.
I'll come back.
All right, thank you.
Kirsten, thank you again.
No problem.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Kirsten. That would not have been possible, but because of you. Thank you very much. We would have missed Ralph's poems, and he would have missed reading it for us. He was very excited about being here, So I hope that he comes back. And with him, we have come to the end of a very, very beautiful session. But I will ask Jaideep sir to read a poem before he concludes. And just let Ralph join back.
Yeah, it was a very special evening in the morning because we could connect, which was impossible to connect. That's the mystery of, I think, the power of words. I'll just read one poem, Fall of Hearts. In the retreating light of the day, my prayers for the poets, connecting with the open autumnal sky. How does one lose things? By forgetfulness. How does a poet die? Mounting the steps to an altar. Figures arrive and go before the fated hour. These bricks seem to be watching the hard ways of love and loss. Devotees coming and going, keeping our separate hopes. I see the wan smile not pinned by human feet, and fever's daily rust reigns in my forest town whisper, over the roadside fields, forests green. Meaning of her face lurks in meaningless efforts to raise sterile desires in the crowless silence in search of another prayer somewhere. The endurable sight of colors remain, a voice that heals all pains of the world. I sit down here after a Hamlet song in old gestures in the serene light, hands folded for promises to mount some steps tomorrow on an autumnal day. Thank you so much. Thank you. It was really a feast of ideas and words I have expressed. And what a treat it was. Treat to the eyes, treat to meeting, and of course by virtual, but always treat to the ears. We could pulse it with the feelings that expressed by each one from very different backgrounds. What a wonderful time we had spent, and what a lovely thoughts that melted into a lucid, rhymed couplets, or in unrhymed ways. We followed different routes, but we spoke for one word, that is poetry. Poetry for the cell is autumnal. We cannot lose something called poetry. It is always at the heart. It speaks. Over to Vasudhara for final words. And thank you for joining and consenting, joining from different time zones, and even in the very early morning or in evening. Thank you once again. Over to Vasudhara for vote of thanks.
Thank you. I have no words to thank you with. It has
But before that, we won't lose the opportunity of listening to Vasudhara's poem. Vasudhara, if you can recite one poem, and then
I will recite one poem. Thank you. Even if you would not have asked me to, would have ended with a poem, because yes, it's the birthday of a dear friend today, and I wrote this poem once, and I would like to read this. It's about the fall, and it's titled Unwriting Fall. The sun greens you this winter. Under the canopy of its rays, your leaves alchemize, fluttering emerald into gold. Managed to hoodwink by playing truant when it arrived. Summer from my yard. Now, out of the season's soul, you're all smiles. There is a season inside you, you say, and that it's okay to find one's way into time, instead of the other way around. I hear you juggle dreams like a giant wheel of light. Inside your head, the universe speaks in the language of peace. In curiosity, like leavened bread, rises to seek answers from the sky's twilight chalkboard. At me, engraved lyrics of loss gaze down from the ceiling sky. My taxidermied years stand still on shelves. At every window, save the one you stand at, frames fall. When I walk into your shade, you never ask me to stay. And I always fear I'm driving some theorem away with my presence. But I brush through your leaves each time I pass. And night's duet, when it meets my skin, always parts with a tinge of emerald, turning into gold. Thank you so much. And we are extremely grateful around the Hearth that we could have such beautiful voices, that we could celebrate fall, because at the end of the day, we must prepare to lose and we must also prepare to gain. So thank you for joining us in this beautiful celebration. We are especially grateful that, Kirsten could help us out to hear Ralph. We would have missed something very special, Ralph. We are very grateful. We were talking about your lovely photographs that you sent us. And I have also intended to share my screen and share them with everybody. But in connecting with you, I forgot all that. So I had intended to share them while you were reading. So thank you everyone for a very, very memorable session. And this will be up on YouTube, and I'll share the link with everybody very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's celebrate the spirit of fall. Thank you. Maitreyee, I read your book.